And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Taylor. Taylor, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself. Taylor is at UWC Southeast Asia in Singapore. He was the coach, or he is the coach, but he was the coach of our first two mythical world champions as part of ISA. And he's on to a new adventure at the end of this year. So Taylor, please take it away.
Hi guys, welcome. Can everybody hear okay? I'm not sure of that. It's all good. Yeah, I mean, I've got a little bit of a intro at the start of the talk, but just want to say before we go, thank you to Matt for putting this together. Not just this, but obviously the communication over the years as well. It's just building that community, and some of my talk's going to be about that as well. So thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who's come in on the call as well. It's the first time, seems to be quite a few hundred people in here. We'll soon see what, I think the test is the next one, because there might be a load this time, and then the next time only 10 people show up. So that's kind of maybe down to us, and hopefully we don't harp on too long. Essentially, guys, I'll just share the screen, because I think I've got a bit of a presentation, and hopefully that will, I'll be able to make that work. So yeah, I'm really, I mean, I thought hard about the talk and thought, should I go a kind of academic style talk? And I thought, you know what, it's better, you know, to maybe steer clear of that a little, and just talk about my experience in the last 12 or 13 years at international school swimming, mostly in Asia, and, you know, changing the culture of that over that period of time. So I've kind of looked at the past, the present, the future, and it's really from my eyes. So the way I've seen it, so it is very much opinion based. So you know, the intention is just to kind of observe and see how I've seen things move and certainly develop, which has been really exciting, and then perhaps give my 2 cents as to where I feel that it can go in the future. So I've said in this first slide here, you know, we can do this, and I think that's the big thing. If we work together and as a community, we can really make it happen and take it to where I personally believe it has to go. So I don't know how to make this screen move. Oh, there we go. So a very short bit about my background. As a kid, I was a multi-athlete kid. So, you know, I did a lot of stuff. I skied for the local race team in Edinburgh. Played rugby until I was 15, 16 years old for the first team at school. Played cricket for the East of Scotland. I don't think many people play cricket in Scotland, so I think they just chose me out of pity that I could actually bowl. That was about it. But and then obviously I swam the whole time as well, and didn't really start taking swimming seriously till I was probably 14 years old. And I swam to an okay level. You know, I swam at a Scottish schoolboy level, and I got a cap there, and, you know, failed at the Commonwealth hurdle. You know, that was that. But yeah, I've been teaching swimming since the late 90s, really, with the family company. Still involved in that company, and actually, you know, looking to take a more active role in that very soon. Graduated in sports science 2005, diploma and masters in education in 2007, I think it was. Can't remember now. I taught PE in the UK for a couple of years, and then 2009, I moved internationally to Shanghai, to a small school called Rigo, which now doesn't exist. I think they went bust. I'm not sure if that's anything to do with me, but it was a very small school. We had about 500 kids. I think we had about 400 in our program. I moved into Garden School, obviously a much bigger school. I was there for a very short time, just 1 year, and then took the job at UWCSEA-East as the first head coach. It was, yeah, a really good experience to take something from nothing, really no water in the pool, essentially, to what is an okay program now. It's certainly not there yet, but, you know, I think we've done okay on an international school kind of scene. A few years ago, did a master's in performance coaching. And over the time here, not including like in the UK with junior athletes, but in the international school world, you know, I think the last 5 or 6 years, we've had somebody on an international team somewhere in the world. But, you know, Singapore, different places. And I've, you know, been to Southeast Asia Championships and had a swimmer at World Juniors as well, for one of the smaller countries of the world. So just really just kind of wanted to go through that quickly. I don't think it's really that interesting. I think hopefully the other insights I have maybe a little more. So I've said the past, and I think in terms of international school swimming, I think, you know, we have a lot of people in this room here who, you know, I know we've got Olympians in here, we've got world champions in the room, you know, to name a few. We've got people who've swum at multiple Commonwealth Games, and I think it's important that we know where we're at, but also know what we can potentially do in the international school scene. And I think that belief has to be there. And there's a few things that I think. So in the past, I say it's the way behind stage because it really was way behind. When I arrived in 2009, I was quite shocked, to be honest, at what the international school swimming scene was like, given that there's such a captive audience for us all. I was perhaps a little bit shocked at that. So one thing, coaches barely talk to each other. I think that was certainly the case moving to Singapore. It really was weird. Like coaches didn't want to converse. WhatsApp wasn't as big a thing. I think that made a difference later on, but it was like there was this competitive culture where people didn't like each other from different schools. But the level of competition, I remember thinking at the time, was so low. Why is everybody getting so upset and excited about this competition? You know, and that bothered me, I think, in the beginning, because a lot of the programs were PE teachers. Now, absolutely no disrespect, I'm a PE teacher. I qualified as a PE teacher. I think the main reason I got the job at UWCSEA-East all those years ago in 2011 or 12, whenever it was because I was a PE teacher. You know, they weren't hiring coaches. It wasn't a thing really back then. I had a PE qualification and I could also coach, and maybe I taught well. I don't know. In the interview, I managed to snag that job. And really the idea of it at the time was we're going to create a swimming program within the school. And all of those pieces will hopefully be able to come together to create what is a good swimming program. And that was very much my intention when I very first came. I mean, the interview itself, I remember saying, like, I'm only going to do it if X, Y, and Z. And there was a bunch of things that I'll maybe allude to later. And interestingly, the answers I kind of got back was like, how are you going to do that in terms of holidays and things? And I said, well, we're a swimming coach. And yeah, okay, I'm a PE teacher, but you know, we're looking to build a program, and that's what the school wanted at that time. So we used PE for sure, and you know, brought that into the program in a way, but also created an after-school program. At the time when I very first came, it was swimmers were all swimming in clubs, and I know it's different in different places. It was certainly the case when I came to Singapore. The best swimmers certainly were all swimming in outside clubs, and the talk when you went to any conference was, "Oh, they must be swimming in a club." If it was a good swimmer, somebody who would be winning everything, "Oh, they must be swimming in a club," and that was normal. That was yeah, okay, that's okay. Again, what we were trying to plan to do was that isn't going to be the case. You know, it didn't make sense to me. So that was strange. And the other thing was this was a more, I guess, a China thing in Shanghai. There's a lot of private coaches. And I guess that comes in tow with, especially in Asia, you know, the tutoring and private coaching, Kumon type style thing is actually encouraged in some places. And And it's difficult to sell that sometimes to the parents as to, well, I'm getting my extra, why would I not do that? And trying to explain that was not a massive challenge, because I started with a blank slate. So it was easy, you know, it was easy for me. And I know it's certainly not as easy. It wasn't as easy in China. It wasn't as easy in Malaysia, you know, so I think that's a really important thing to talk about. And then, you know, on top of all these things, there just wasn't enough time spent on training. And this was across the board, you know, people, they had things where you have to train so many times a week, or you have to do 3 times with the school to be able to swim in the team, or once a week, or 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, or whatever. There was all these kind of caveats that would allow you, which again, we just didn't do. We just said, you swim with us, or, you know, you can swim in another club, and that's totally fine. And it was supported either way. But we, you know, we kind of laid that law down, and I think that made a difference. And this is a tough one, and I feel almost nervous saying it, and I don't want to cause any offense at all, but teachers and coaches, you know, they prioritize holidays over the athletes, and that's how it looked. And that was one of the things that was in my, when I kind of put my, I don't know what you call it, my kind of case forward for what we had, a 5-year and a 10-year plan, and I've been there 10 years. That's kind of my reason, one of my reasons why I'm moving on. But I had those 2 plans, and within the 5-year plan, it was, you know, these are the things we want to achieve. This is where we want to get to. And one of the questions from Hugh Richards, who was the AD at the time, was, well, how are you going to do that when there's so many holidays and so many school holidays? And I said, well, I'm going to have to work in those holidays. And he said, well, you're not going to get paid extra for that. So I'm getting paid plenty. And let's be honest, you know, the international school world of PE teaching and stuff, we do okay compared to, you know, the lives perhaps that we led in, you know, back home. And I was a PE teacher at West Calder High School in West Lothian in Scotland, and I coached 18 hours a week for nothing. I think I got £100 a month for petrol. So for me, coming and being able to teach PE during the day and then run a swimming program and build a swimming program was a dream, and getting paid pretty good money. And so like having to do some holidays was just, it was a given, right? And that's a tough one. It's a tough one, but you know, I believed in it at the time, and that's what I've done for the last 10 years. And I think all of the above, and this is the sad thing about all of it, is, you know, we're here, we're bringing this community together. This is a big community. The community you want to bring together is your swimmers and your parents and your staff and your other coaches and the other teachers who might help out. And all of these kind of issues, I guess, and the issues, they did lead to more conflict with the swimmers and the parents. And, you know, we've had about 450 swimmers in our team, from development, doing 1 or 2 times a week, right through to the guys who are swimming, you know, 20 plus hours a week, 50 weeks a year. We've probably my proudest thing is we've had very few parent issues. And that's unbelievable, really, to me, for a swimming program. And I think some of it perhaps comes from that lack of consistency elsewhere, where there's a bit of this and a bit of that. And yeah, look, it's difficult when you have somebody who's swimming in a club and there's not many opportunities for club competitions in Singapore. You know, they have 3 or 4 meets a year, and they want to swim in all the school meets, because we organize amazing meets and loads of meets and conferences and great stuff. It's a hard conversation when you say, look, you know, if you want to do that, you swim with us. If not, then you go somewhere else. Now, that's not about that's never about me. I think that was always about the athlete, because it's not fair. And it wasn't fair for them to be able to do that and then come to training. You know, they could their whole training program is messed up. And I think that's, you know, it's an easy thing to think about. I guess from my point, in Shanghai, I had one young lad who, I think he eventually went on to SAS. I'm not sure if he was with George or was with John at the Pushy SAS, but he was better than at the time than what we could offer him. Now that hurt, because I kind of have a bit of a big head, and I thought, yeah, we can do this. But it got to the point I was like, you know what, this kid has to go and join a club. So I do understand. It's just, I guess, when I got the job at UWC East, with the support and the facility and the coaching abilities that we had, it didn't make any sense. Now we had some swimmers, we had some great swimmers who've gone on to, you know, NCAA championships and ACC champions this year who did swim with us for a while, and then they didn't. And the conversation was very much, what do you want to do? What's best for you? I'm not going to take offense if you want to go and this, you prefer this coach. And, you know, that particular person said, yeah, this is my coach, I feel. And I said, great, go for it, because that's what's going to make you better. Not just keeping coming, dipping in and out when actually you really don't want to do it. And it was actually creating issues. And it was the best thing, that was in my first year. It's the best thing we ever did, or the second year. Best thing we ever did with the team, because suddenly everybody felt like they belonged. And, you know, and it made a huge difference. And I think, you know, that's the way it was in Singapore, in Southeast Asia particularly. I think things have changed and are changing a lot. And it's where we kind of move into the present. And I've kind of cheekily called this the pretending stage. And I think we all are still pretending, and I'm still pretending to an extent. And it's about really being honest with ourselves. We are still far behind, but we've come such a long way. And especially in the last decade, we've come a really, really long way. Decisions are being made on schools' philosophies by schools, by coaches, by athletic directors. Those decisions are being made one way or the other, and I think that's good because people are talking about it. And again, it's not one way isn't necessarily the right way. But we are seeing, especially in Singapore, emergence of paid programs, and that's what we did. Full-time coaches, the correct amount of training hours, you know, so correctly building through training hours, making sure kids are not doing way too much in the beginning. I want to make sure that misconception is quashed, that, you know, we're hammering kids at young ages. If you just have to look at the junior, middle school and high school levels, and you can see that that's really not happening in Singapore. I can talk for at least. I think people are starting to be more honest. And like I say, every school's different, but the development of athletic culture is the same. And that doesn't really change anywhere. The culture that you're trying to create, it has to be the same, you know, and I think we can talk a lot about it, you know, holistic learning, you know, making sure that they're multi-sport athletes, all that kind of stuff. I think that is very similar across, which is good. It's just getting to that point where it's not necessarily a jack of all trades and master of none. And I think that's really, really important. Number 3, consistency is absolutely key. And I think, you know, we can't preach what you're not able to deliver. And again, that's just that honesty part, is if you can't deliver that, and that's my example from when I was in Shanghai. I couldn't deliver the program I really wanted to deliver. I wanted to do that, but we couldn't. So we sent that boy to a club, and he did still swim for our team. You know, it was okay. He swam in a club. The funny thing is, actually, we sent him to a club, and I went along to watch because I did want to still care about him. And it was insane. We actually had to move his club within a week because they were smacking kids around the head with fins and all sorts of stuff. It was crazy. So I made a bit of a mistake. I'm glad I did go and watch what was going on there, but it was like horrendous. I pulled him out of the water, but it's a slightly different story. But yeah, and that's it's having that philosophy and knowing what it is, you know, and then being able to deliver what you're telling the kids. Number 4. The club culture, certainly in Singapore, I know in Bangkok as well, and around Southeast Asia, the club culture is slowly being created. I think, you know, people swimming at school, professional coaches. I mean, it's amazing now when I look around and I think about when I first started, most of the coaches were PE teachers. Some had a bit of a swimming background. A lot really liked swimming. There was some coaches. Schools are now employing coaches. I mean, I know certainly the Singapore schools, our school, they're employing people who are coaches that don't have teaching qualifications. And I think that's a good thing. I think there's other issues that come with it for sure, because integrating in a school kind kind of setting is different, and it takes a bit of time coming from the club setting. But those cultures are being created in different places, and there's so many different examples. There's higher performance places where you know, they've got programs that build in. I'm thinking Colin at BIS in Thailand and Phuket. You know, he's got a really good structure now coming through at the bottom, and then they've got their performance program at the top. We've got other programs that are, you know, smaller club structures that are looking to develop young kids and then sending them to other places. And I think that's huge, you know, and whatever people are doing, I think is really important, that the athletes are the ones who are at the center of the thinking. And like I say, it's not one way or the other. Number 5, and I had a look through some of the slides, and the one from Nick Wilson at BIS in Beijing, looking for solutions and not excuses. And I think that hopefully Nick is going to talk about that. I know their pool, I've been to their pool, it's a smaller pool. You know, we're very lucky. We have a 10-lane, 50-meter pool where we set up 20 lanes of short course in the afternoon. We go mornings, different mornings of the week, where we have you know, long course training sessions. Obviously, things right now with the restrictions are different, but it's allowed us to be pretty solid in terms of what we're doing in terms of the training. So it is finding those solutions, because I have heard in the past, and I don't hear it as much now, which is cool, that, oh, we can't do this. We can't do what you've done because of pool size, or the amount of time that we have, or buses, or there's too many holidays, or it's a transient environment, you know, or, you know, and I see this one, the culture of sport in the country is not strong enough. And I think the issue is all of those things can be addressed, you know, in some way or another. You know, the culture of sport in the country is something that us in Singapore, you know, we talk with the Singapore Swimming Association, and we are, the nice thing for us now is that club culture, that we're affiliated clubs, most of us in Singapore, and our voice is becoming more and more heard. I think it's still not heard so much because we have so few Singapore kids. And I mean, in Singapore, if you're Singaporean, you can't really go to international school. So obviously the association, and rightly so, like their focus and their national agenda is for Singaporeans. So you might have the odd Singaporean who, you know, comes in on a Spanish passport and changes to a Singapore passport. That's how a couple of my swimmers made the SEA Games team, is because they came in on a different passport and then they changed the Singapore passport. So, you know, that's one way that can happen. But I think it's good that we're being listened to by Singapore Swimming, and I think they certainly value the money that we pay for nationals and stuff. And I think that is one thing. Pool size, I mean, another great example, and I want to give examples of people, I don't know if he's here, but Ivan, who's at Nexus in Singapore, and they have a nice big pool now, but he created a fantastic program and has a fantastic program out of a 25-meter pool. And there is a way to do it if you have the will. And for any of you who do know Ivan, he certainly has the will. And for me, that's commendable. And then the communities of practice that are developing. I think this is the most exciting part of all of it. And you know, Matt's kind of been a catalyst of this internationally. I like to think I had a bit of something to do with it here in Singapore, in terms of just getting people together to do stuff and to try and make it feel like we're not all ones and twos and you know, we just come together for the conference, but actually we can create some things. And I had a few examples. So we set up the ISETs, which is International School Elite Team. So we would come together, I think it was twice a year. We've not done it obviously for a while with COVID, and there's some things we needed to iron out, but essentially it's training camps. You know, we're not reinventing anything. We were doing essentially district regional programs that they do in the UK, just to allow people, the best swimmers who had quadruple or triple A times on the USS standards, to come together 2-3 times a year as one team, to train together. Coaches work together. Coaches take different groups. We split it up into different stroke groups, and we did stroke camps, and we did land-based things and some testing and different types of stuff. And it went down really well. I mean, the intention, the longer term intention, was that maybe we can create what is like a Singapore team, and the AAA times would become quadruple A times, you know, where it really is a proper elite team of guys who will most likely go to college in the US and are getting that opportunity, many of whom probably have that opportunity in their home countries anyway. But it just allows that feeling within Singapore to be able to do that. And I know that Rich, I couldn't find a logo or anything. I'm not sure if there was, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, BISAC did something similar with talent camps as well. Again, I'm not sure if that was on the back of what we were doing or it was at the same time. And then obviously what we're doing here. And I'm sure there's many, many examples. Again, I'm just talking about what I know in this particular region, but I think this is the way forward. And it's, you know, it's not just getting coaches together, but getting the athletes together, I think, is really important in a competitive together training environment, rather than, okay, they come together for the meet, but you still want to sit, you want to cheer at your own team, and you want to create that little bit of a buzz where, you know, there's this competition, right? You're not all you don't really want people being pally and, you know, having a chat for 10 minutes in the warm-up. I mean, there's nothing that annoys me more than that, when you go along, oh, I've not seen you for so long, and, you know, that kind of thing. But I think being able to create something that, you know, allows those kids to be pushed further where perhaps, you know, they're not in their own country, or it's a long way to get back to a development camp. You know, we've had kids who go back, they fly back all the way back to, you know, wherever it is, Canada or Malaysia. I mean, Malaysia's not so far, but they go and do a development camp, or Finland. You know, we had a boy last year, went back for 4 days to a finished development camp to then come back. And it's kind of like, it's good because it's important for him. But I mean, those were the days when you could do that. But is it always necessary? Not really, if you have something that works set up. So the future. Now I've called it the serious support stage, because I think that's what it needs. So what does need to be done, and can we truly change the culture? And I'm not going to lie, I question this. Can we really truly change what there is? And I think, number one, collaboration and shared values in the community. We just talked about that. It must start at your own school, where we can do all this stuff, and this is great. But if this is just another Zoom call, and there's many of them, and we talk and we listen and we think, yeah, but that won't work. And inside you think, oh, yeah, I don't know about my school. I'm not sure whether they'll do that, or I maybe don't have the coaches, or like, that has to happen first. And then for me, and this is absolutely huge, we have to think, and this is no disrespect to this conference that we're doing now, we have to think better than international school swimming. We have to think bigger than that. If we only stick to this, the present stage will very quickly become the past stage again, and it'll just be a cycle of moving between past and present. You know, we are a long way behind. International school swimming, you look at the rankings, like, they're such a long way behind bog standard clubs in the States, or Hungary, or Britain, or Italy, or, you know, a lot of these places. We're a long way behind. So we have to think bigger than that. And if we do, I think that's where, you know, we can, if that's the aim, if not, fine. But if that is the aim, to take it to a higher performance level, then I think that is absolutely key. And in doing that is striving for better environment of competition, and pushing those boundaries. You know, we, for years now, kids, and it's a real difficult juggling situation, but kids, especially over the summer break, will be in multiple countries in the world. And obviously, as a coach, you can't go to every single one of them, but setting up a situation where it's easy to go, you know, you can have a kid at British nationals, Canadian nationals, age groups, obviously, you know, Finnish, Swedish, Danish. I'm thinking of one year when we had kids at English at multiple places, as well as obviously the Singapore Nationals, which happens just before they go away. It's hard to juggle, and I know a lot of us in this room are doing that, and that's tough. Again, the online competitions is great. It is great. It's a kind of it's a step for where we are at the moment, and I think it is what it is. You're still in your own pool. The way that these kids are going to get better is regularly swimming against the best people. I think Japan has a really good situation there. I know St Andrew's School in Japan have a really good setup, and you know they have swimmers swimming at the YOC every year, and which is obviously an insane level of swimming. You know the Japanese competitions. It's good if that's on your doorstep. Singapore Nationals for us it's okay for us actually as an international school place, but it's amazing how the kids from all the schools, unless they're so driven by the other things going to other countries, it becomes the level, and the level is not that good. You know, it's not the same level where they go away thinking, oh, I made a final at Singapore Nationals. Now, they wouldn't have even qualified for British Nationals or US age groups. You know, they wouldn't have got there. So it creates that. And I think that's really important, that we try to do what we can to send the better ones and have no ceiling, I guess. You know, again, I said, like, you know, thinking bigger than the school, have no ceiling for the kids on what they can do. Otherwise, they will perhaps go to clubs. You know, they will perhaps move from your program and go to somewhere that has that, you know, a Millfield or a Bowls or a Plymouth in the UK, or, you know, a Carmel in the United States. Like, if you have a really top swimmer like that, is that the best? It might be that might be, you know, the best thing for them. And if it is, then fantastic. But can we do something in the future to create that environment in multiple places where we can give those kids, you know, the best opportunity to really go to that level or go to college? I think the use of when I said I wasn't going to go academic. I put a couple of little things in, but you know, the biopsychosocial coaching model, which is by Collins and McNamara, I think is a really much more up-to-date model, and is a stronger model than Bally's LTAD. And you know, if we're honest, we've been using Bally's LTAD for 20 years, and really it's a physiological model that is pretty much stuck in a physiological model, and it's good. I think it creates a nice little slideshow that you can give to parents. I still use it to an extent to talk about the different stages, but it's stages of physiology. And I think we have to be very careful that we're pigeoning swimming into physiology and biomechanics, which is what so many people do. There's obviously a psychological side, which we know and as well talked about, but the social side of what we're doing is huge. And I think that encompasses all the other things we're talking about. If we're wanting to have better competitions, we're wanting to think bigger than international schools, their social circles are within international schools or within Singapore, and we need to support that. But at the same time, we've got to help them understand what that means as an athlete and as a swimmer, and support that all the way through. You know, it's tough. I mean, especially in Asia, the exam focus is massive. No matter where you go, it's huge. And IB, especially, it's really difficult. And for me, like, I'm so proud of my athletes that over the years, they've been really consistent with training. And you know, a couple of years ago at GCSEs, we had 10 kids doing GCSEs, and I think all of them trained, none of them missed sessions. They did an average of 8 or 9 sessions a week. And out of those 10 GCSEs, they did 10 each. They had 97 A's and 3 B's, I think. You know, and I really celebrated that. Those guys now are doing their IB. Things have all gone a bit messed up because of the COVID situation. We're in a wee kind of mini lockdown here again now. But like, those things have to be celebrated as well, but they have to be supported, because if they're not supported through that, they definitely would just not show up. for sure. And when I say supported, I mean I bug them, like, and sell them and sell them and sell them the dream. I'm like a car salesman. You know, this is what you got to do if you want to do this, and you know, really make them believe. I'm not going to say bully because that's this has been recorded, but like, you know, push them in a strong way to believe that, you know, there is bigger things. And it's amazing because as soon as those IB exams are over, it's like everything's lifted. They don't care anymore. It's like you just spent 2 years being half lobotomized by your study. And honestly, like, the swimming is a huge part of helping with that mental health side, which is obviously a big thing at the moment as well. And that's just the book there if anybody's interested in having a look at that. The nice thing about this book is it's not a super academic book. There's a bit of, you know, there's a few references and things in there, but it reads nicely. Like, it's not like a really heavy academic journal book, although Dave Collins is obviously quite a famous psychologist or sports psychologist. It's quite a good read. And I've given this to a number of coaches who have moved elsewhere and are looking to build their own program. I really like it. So yeah. And really, the last part, just thank you guys. I tried to make it half an hour and so, to leave a few questions. I've actually linked at the end here my thesis that I did a couple of years ago when I was doing the masters, and I did it as a review of the stakeholders, the parents, our coaches at the time. Some Martin, who's here in here now, was involved in that as well, and then also the swimmers. And we surveyed and did focus groups of different things, just as to look at how we could look to build a world-class swimming program within international schools. So, I mean, honestly, it is quite academic, and you might just want to read the introduction because it's quite long. But I just put it in there anyway, just in case anybody wants to delve a little bit deeper than just pure opinion. I guess I like to give my opinion on a lot of things, but there's a little bit more backing within that. So yeah. So guys, thank you very much. I think what we've got maybe like 10 minutes. I don't know if there's some questions from the group. I'll work out how to stop this.
Can I say something?
Guys, just shout it out, and then we'll mute everyone else.
I've known Taylor many years, since 2009 in Shanghai, and I know his passion for swimming. There were just some things I'd like to comment, if you don't mind, and this thing that you were saying about international school cultures, and we need to get away with it. One of the reasons we do take our holidays, Taylor, is that we're not living at home. I feel, and I'm getting old now, I am old, but I feel we need that contact with our families. And so when we have 3 weeks at Christmas, or we have the 2 months in the summer, most of us just get out of Dodge and go and visit folks, our folks back home, or our families back home. And that's why I think it's very hard to compare with club swimming back home and international schools that we're in. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. I mean, I completely understand. And of course, like, we're in the summers, most summers I'll try and get home as well. I think it's being able to set up a way to make it keep happening. And I think with us, you know, we run a summer program and we essentially give the coaches a bit of a bonus. We dumb down the program, especially over summer, Christmas and stuff, not so much, but over the summer program, we'll dumb it down a little bit. And we make sure that we switch that around. So it's definitely not martyrdom. And I know that there's a lot of coaches that, oh, I've never had a day off. You know, I think Dennis Cottrell's famous for saying he never had a day off in 30 years. I certainly don't agree with that, because it's not healthy. And you know, I don't want to be another one of those, you know, divorced coaches. So yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, I mean, I did say that to kind of create a little bit of something. So I'm glad that you brought that one up. But I think you can still put something in place to be able to run an all year round program, if that's possible, even if that's hiring in people to run your program over that period of time. And again, look, it really just depends on on what, where, and how much you want to do it. Like I'm a little bit neurotic, and I know there's other people who are as well. But perhaps there is also a reason that I've after 10 years, I'm not going to be doing it for a little while. Maybe taking a small break because I've not had many.
Yeah, but and then another thing that you mentioned is if we do it all year, there's a lot of people that I've worked with, but also I think that are here in this session that are local hire and are not getting that good salary that you mentioned, that we're getting paid so well. That, you know, to ask them to stay extra hours, they might not even get a stipend. I had my coaching staff in Shanghai did have a stipend, but the ones here do not. So they're just getting overtime, if that. And so how do you then try to persuade the powers that be, the admin or the athletic director, but even higher, the ones that deal with the money, to make it an important thing?
That's a great question, and the answer for us is our summer program. It's the only one we charge for, so we don't charge. We charge for the summer program, and all of the money from that goes to the coach who's coaching it that week. So it's a really nice bonus. You know, it can be a really quite an attractive bonus for 1 week's work, only about 12 to 16 hours. So literally the coaches are biting the hands off to try and get those weeks. And then the cool thing is they will then kind of set it up. So they then try and sell their own week. So they might, you know, we've got 6 coaches, we've got 6 weeks. Each coach perhaps will have a week, and then, you know, they say, oh, to the kids, hey, come to my week, sign up for this week. So, you know, the more kids they have coming that week, they get all that money minus a little pool hire fee, and then, you know, GST. So that's the model that we used. Stupidly, I never ever took any of that. I looked over the years. I did a horrible calculation the other day. I thought, well, I don't want to take any of that money. I won't tell you how much I gave back to the school, but I know that's the way it goes. We're trying to be a good guy. But yeah, great question.
Thank you so much for kicking us off, Taylor. Any other questions out there?
Yeah, I have one actually, if you don't mind, if you'd oblige me, Taylor. So I'm quite familiar with your program. I'm just interested in the links that you've created with the national governing body and UWC. I mean, how did those initial conversations start, and what was the background behind that?
I mean, we just created it as a club, you know. So we just affiliated with the association back in 2011, and we showed up at nationals, and we said, well, we're affiliates. At that time, nobody else was doing that. Now every single school does it. We did it because we were young and we weren't in a conference in the first year, so we weren't in the CSAC. We had to kind of to beg and pillage to get into CSAC in 2011, which is our local Southeast Asia conference. So that was the option. Is like, well, we want to have some decent competition in March and in December. Apart from the local access, we just thought, well, we might as well start that. And it was humiliating, to be honest, in the first couple of years, because we got absolutely trounced. And, you know, I'd gone from coming from the UK, one of the best programs in the UK, with guys making all sorts of teams in the Olympics. I'm like, oh man, like kind of keep my head down. So yeah, it was just a matter of that. And again, we're lucky in Singapore that that's easy to do. We looked into that in Shanghai, and that was just almost impossible to even know where people were swimming in Shanghai half the time. So
it's quite similar to how it is in Oman at the moment. And naturally, unless you are a native Arabic speaker, it is incredibly difficult to create those links within a governing body. And then I guess the perceived benefit from doing that just within the country that we're currently in. I see the benefit in terms of access to international open competition, but at the same time, it's not that the governing body here is not as developed to allow those things to happen. So it was just a curiosity as to how this happened from get-go for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, Singapore swimming is really good. It's certainly improved a lot. And in Southeast Asia, they do things very well. They've got very, very highly experienced people running. You know, it's like everything. We like to complain about it, but you know, they know what they're doing, and they've got a decent idea. And yes, there's also another national agenda on top of that. So I'm sure there's frustrations for them, but the people they've got in there are world-class coaches and administrators. So it's not comparable. And yeah, I can see that frustration. That must be really, really tough.
Yeah, thanks for the background on all this really interesting stuff. Thank you.
Well, Taylor, I believe you have your email address in the presentation, and we'll be sharing that out as well. If anybody else has any other questions, please feel free to send them along. And thank you guys so much for this first one. Nick Wilson from IS Beijing is going to be taking over here in about a minute. If you would like to go to the other talk, which is Conrad and Jake from Jakarta, the link has been posted in the chat as well as in the PDF that you have. So thank you very much, Taylor. Way to start us off.